Hello and welcome to Hockey Talkie. My name is Clay. Thank you for tuning in. The Blackhawks have concluded their prospect development camp, a week-long affair of on-ice practices, off-ice workouts, and meetings, and bonding, and cooking classes, all concluding with a nice little scrimmage on the final day. We got to see prospects and players in a Blackhawks uniform on the ice for the first time. That was super cool to see. And then we also had guys, veterans like Chad Chris, who were at their fourth prospect development camp, get to see how they've kind of progressed over the years. So let's talk about what we saw, who stood out, and maybe a little bit of what we can expect from the future of these guys. Now, it's good to note that this development camp isn't really about evaluating players. Like, that's not the main goal of it. Now, obviously, management and coaches are always evaluating players, but for the most part, they already know where all these guys pretty much rank in their prospect depth chart for the most part. Now, guys can kind of catch coach's eye if they have a really good prospect camp, but for the most part, it's not really about evaluating players here. What this camp is mostly about, and Stan Bowman kind of said this, it's mostly about getting these players acclimated to the Blackhawks organization and the coaching staff and drills, and getting them to learn how to be a pro, because these kids are teenagers still. They're years away from becoming a Blackhawk if they ever do become one. They're going to be going off to their junior team, their college team, their European team, whatever. But this prospect camp kind of gives them a sense of all these drills of what they maybe need to work on or what the coaches want them to work on to take to their teams over the next year or so, to help kind of in their development. Now, with that said, there were some guys who stood out. And to be fair, they were guys that you expected to stand out. Adam Boqvist, Kirby Dach, Ian Mitchell, Alexander Nylander, although Nylander really should have stood out considering he was the only guy in this prospect development camp that has played in the NHL. But those guys kind of caught the eyes of management, Stan Bowman. But like, the coaching staff and management really, they kind of already knew that those were kind of the top guys. So it's, like I said, not really much of a surprise, but still nice to see them, rise kind of to the top, be the cream of the crop. So those were over the first 4 days, practices, drills. Then came the scrimmage on the final day. And the thing with the scrimmage is that unlike the first 4 days where you kind of had to be in the rink to see everything, the scrimmage was live streamed, so you could actually watch all of the action. Because the first 4 days, like, there's clips being posted online and stuff, but you're not seeing everything that's going on. The scrimmage, you could tune in, you can see it all. And overall, I was very impressed. I thought there was just great pace to the play. There was confidence that a lot of guys were playing at. Now, there were mistakes that were made, which you would expect from prospects. But overall, I really liked what I saw from pretty much everyone that was there. Obviously, there were guys that stood out, but overall, like, the talent level has definitely increased in our prospects pool, and that is really neat to see. And so when guys stand out from that higher level of overall play, it's even better. Adam Boqvist was an absolute stud on the ice, had the beautiful move to set up Josiah Slavin to get the first goal of the scrimmage. It basically just blew the roof off the building. It was nuts. But he was absolutely fantastic through the entire scrimmage. Definitely the MVP in my book. Then you have Nicolas Beaudin, who was paired up with Adam Boqvist. Now, Beaudin wasn't as flashy as Boqvist, but he was solid. And them two together was just like good night to the other team on the blue line. Beaudin, not as flashy, solid, set up Hagel for a nice one-timer. Beaudin really impressed me during this scrimmage as well. Speaking of Brandon Hagel, he was absolutely flying out there. It seemed like whenever he touched the puck, he was just going. He just turned on another gear. If you don't remember, Brandon Hagel was the guy who was drafted by the Sabres in the same draft as Alexander Nylander was drafted by the Sabres, but his rights kind of ran out last fall, and we swooped in and signed him. So this is his first year, or our first look at him as a Blackhawk, and I was impressed. I was really impressed. He's going to be in Rockford next year. It'll be fun to see how he does there. Then you had Kirby Dach. Everyone wanted to see how our number 3 overall pick did, and he did not disappoint. I thought he had a great scrimmage. He tried to do maybe a little bit too much out there at times, but, you know, I can understand that with the pressure that is the number 3 overall pick. I think he'll kind of settle into his own as time goes, but you could tell he has the skills. Had a breakaway, had a nice back check that spoiled a breakaway. He did a lot of great things out there. Another forward, Josiah Slavin, I thought had a good scrimmage, had the hat trick, including the game winner with like 6 seconds left on a breakaway. He had a great season last year in the USHL for the Chicago Steel, got them to the Car Cup final. He'll be attending, I believe, Colorado College this upcoming year. It'll be interesting to see how he does in the NCAA, but great scrimmage from him. Then last but not least, you have Ian Mitchell, who was absolutely solid defensively in this scrimmage, shut down so many plays. So many good sticks. He's going to have another great year at the University of Denver. He's going to be a captain this year, and then he'll probably sign with the Blackhawks, I'm assuming, probably at the end of the year, and we might be able to see him in the NHL come springtime. It's a possibility, but it's easy to see why Stan Bowman and the Blackhawks organization are so high on this kid. He really showed up in the scrimmage. He also had the only shootout goal at the end of the scrimmage, so props to him for that. But yeah, those were kind of the prospects that impressed me during this scrimmage. And like I said, one scrimmage isn't really, you know, the end-all be-all, but, you know, it's nice to see some guys step up. Now, in terms of Alexander Nylander, I don't think he had a bad scrimmage by any means, but I don't think he really, like, stood out how you expected maybe him to stand out. He had some flashes, but for the most part, you know, it was a fairly meh kind of scrimmage. But I'm going to kind of reserve judgment on him until training camp. Like I said in previous video, like I'm just getting like a baseline for him in this prospect camp, especially since he really wasn't even supposed to be here. Like he canceled a vacation to come and be in this prospect development camp. So it is what it is. I think the most important thing for him is what he learned during this week and just apply it from now for a month until training camp, and let's see how he does then. Speaking of training camp, some of these guys will be there. Some of these guys will get into preseason games. Adam Boqvist, Nicolas Beaudin, Kirby Dach, Alexander Nylander, Dominik Kubalik, who was at the prospect development camp, but he was not participating in the on-ice practices or scrimmage. He was just doing off-ice stuff. He'll be there. It'll be interesting to see how he does in training camp. That will kind of be our first look at him. But those guys will be in training camp, kind of try and maybe potentially make it onto a spot on the opening night roster. Although, if they do, I don't really expect them to be there long. I don't think really any of these guys are going to be there mainstays for the Hawks this year. I think they'll get some games in the NHL, but I expect most of them to be down in Rockford. And then in terms of Kirby Dach's case, he'll probably be back in juniors because he's not eligible to play in the AHL. So that's it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it that you did. Let me know your thoughts on everything about this prospect development camp down in the comment section below. I love reading your guys' thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate that as always. But most importantly, stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you next time.